Her name is April Imholt. They dismissed her charges.
All dismissed, all gone, all finito.
Some people might be hypothesizing that means she's cooperating with the state.
There's always a possibility that that's why they arrested her. But here's the issue. Did they talk to her? If they knew Rekieta was her lawyer, did they talk to her without notice to Rekieta?
Yeah, this is big. This is a big assumption. April agreed to Nick representing, especially as she has been released. Big assumption that April agreed. Yeah, that is a huge assumption that she agreed. Because again, so let's say if I go to the courthouse and I say, I'm this person's lawyer. They're going to look at me like, for what reason, right? That person has to tell them, hey, my lawyer is blah, 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 blah. Or somebody has to tell that person, hey, we've hired this guy to be your lawyer. And that person has to accept my representation. So just because Nick says I'm representing these people doesn't actually mean he's representing these people, because it's their right to say. So they have to say, I want an attorney. I want my attorney. So you have to express that. So if you don't, then they don't have to give you an attorney. So I'm not understanding that beef here. Legal Mindset on YouTube showed the search warrant affidavit. I didn't see that. Maybe did he show the search warrant affidavit? I haven't seen it. Yeah, I was on with him this morning. I didn't see it. Matter of fact, he says it in that live stream. We have not seen the search warrant affidavit. He couldn't see. He doesn't have the search warrant affidavit. Maybe it could have been later, but when I was with him, we absolutely, that was the one thing we kept saying. We wish we had the search warrant affidavit. So, and I haven't passed the bar, but it seems kind of dumb to ask a lawyer who you got arrested to represent you. It's not only it's totally unethical. It's ridiculous. That's not. Listen. And I'm going to say this. Every lawyer who's heard that thing about you being arrested with your co-defendant, representing your co-defendant, even at the arraignment, has essentially laughed at that and said that's ridiculous. Every lawyer, all the lawyers this morning laughed at that. Legal Minds, all the lawyers tonight laughed at it. Law Talk with Mike, or every lawyer that has heard that has laughed at it, because it's textbook 101. If you are in this conspiracy, if you're committing a crime with somebody and you both are arrested for, let's say, something like drugs, and the cops arrest you both, then what's problem is there's a conflict of interest. And that conflict is simple. The conflict is that, like, a matter of fact, I'll use this as an example. I can use this real world example with April and Nick. April's in that house and she's saying, those drugs aren't mine. Right? Those drugs aren't mine. And she's now a fact witness to what's going on with the kids. The kids were there, right? She can say, yeah, the kids were there. How long were you there? That type of thing. She's a fact witness. Now, her thing is, those drugs weren't mine. They were theirs. Nick or his wife, right? That's their house. There's their drugs. But now, if Nick is representing her, do you really think she's going to be comfortable in court saying, yeah, it's my lawyer's drug. It's my lawyer's drugs? No. That's the conflict of interest. Even her denials hurt Nick's case, because Nick, and then to be fair, Nick can go in and say the same thing about her. Well, it's her drugs, right? Nick, it can go both ways. I'm not saying he's saying that, but he can say it both ways. So it's what's known as an unwaivable conflict. No lawyer can represent people who they are charged with the same crime. Now, there could be occasion where you're charged, where, let's say, I'm representing you for something else. I'm representing you for some other crime, and then later on we're charged with a crime together. Then in that other case, I wouldn't be able to represent you, and then sometimes even on the previous case, I wouldn't be able to represent you. But that's a unique situation. In 99.99999% of the cases, if you are arrested with the person, the lawyer is duty bound, ethically bound, not to be able to represent you. Good question. Yes, it is. Every single lawyer in YouTube will tell you that, except for Barnes.
They arrested her. But here's the issue. Did they talk to her? If they knew Rekieta was her lawyer, did they talk to her without notice to Rekieta? Because that's what Rekieta reported. He said he had been foreclosed from talking to either his wife, who he was representing, or her, who he was representing.
No. Okay, so just to be clear, the canons will not allow you to represent someone who you've been arrested with in this criminal transaction. That is not the way it works. So yeah, he goes to the jail. It's like, I'm representing them too. They probably laughed at him. It's like, come on, really? Come on, no. You're not representing them. You're arrested with them. You guys are all going to jail together. They should get public defenders to go through the arraignment. You can't represent them. You're locked up too, right? So this argument is, it's absurd. It's an absurd argument. I'm just gonna, and you don't ask me. Ask any other lawyer. It's an absurd argument. It just is. I understand why Nick did it, because he wanted to do it, and it was so unique. The judge was like, "All right, I'll just let you do it." But no, in no jurisdiction will they allow you to represent a client who you're a co-defendant with. No, you can represent yourself, but you can't represent, because your interests aren't aligned. It's just too messy, and it's not waivable. You cannot waive that type of conflict.
And then invaded her Sixth Amendment right.
So didn't have probable cause for her arrest, didn't have probable cause for her detention, and didn't invaded her Sixth Amendment right. So all right, so the probable cause for the arrest, I think it was the fact that she's in a house with 25 grams of cocaine, right? That's probable cause for an arrest. You're in that house. What also with the guns and the children who are being injured. So yeah, so that's the probable cause for the arrest. Anybody in that house, go to a house, sit down, and when the cops raid it, you're probably going to get arrested. That's enough probable cause. You're in the house with the drugs. Probable cause to be detained. That was a probable cause to be detained. Now, one thing he doesn't know is what led to the search warrant. So, you can just do that. And then the last thing is the Sixth Amendment right violation. Nick, by law, couldn't be her lawyer anyway, because he was arrested with her. So there's no Sixth Amendment violation. So I don't know. I don't want to overcomplicate it, but that's as simple as it is. I just don't know what he's talking about here.
In order to secure whatever favorable testimony they possibly could as payback to Rekieta being a high-profile public critic.
Again, so now we get back to the motive, right? They did that to her. They violated all her rights. They let her go uncharged to get her to talk about the nothing in the bathroom, because Rekieta says bad things about them on YouTube.
Conflict, an unwaivable.
No. If there's an unwaivable conflict, you cannot represent her at all. This is ridiculous to even pretend this is the case. You cannot represent her at all. It's so you literally have a conflict of interest. It's just like saying, again, if she can go to that arraignment and says, those are Nick Rekieta's drugs, and I want to plead out, right? I want to say guilty and say those were his drugs, and Nick's her lawyer. Now, is Nick going to say, okay, yeah, that's a great plea. You should definitely take that plea and make sure you let them know that these were my drugs? There's an obvious conflict there. So even at the arraignment, you cannot do it. So I think the violation of her rights is if they had Nick become her attorney. That would be violating her rights. But again, I think this is starting to get to desperation right now, just to be honest with you.